What's up, Vinny 10 at Vinny 10 Racing. If you've been following along, you know this car. This car had the broken retainer, okay? So on VQ37s, if you have an automatic, it's really not a concern. But certainly if you have a stick, you bought the car used, you know, a young kid drove the car, he either possibly banging off the rev limiter and or maybe money shifted the car. As you know, I told you guys, this guy did not bang off the rev limiter, but in my fourth conversation with him, he finally remembered that he did money shift the car from fourth to second, nearly threw him through the windshield. He completely forgot to tell me that. It was about 3 weeks prior to him coming here. That's what ultimately broke this retainer. So in the beginning, I said, hey, that's not the type of customer he was, and he wasn't. But, you know, after you get to try to speak to somebody 2, 3, 4 times, all of a sudden, they remember. And then, so once we realized what was actually causing it, we called up 2 of our friends. One was Ferreira, the guys over there, Zeke and DJ and John and Yolanda and just, you know, the whole group over there. We discussed it with them. They don't have anything for this car right now. We are sending them down some stuff to see if they want to get into this market. And, you know, we hope they do because they put out a really good quality piece. But the guys that already have something in this market are the guys from Jim Wolf. Jim Wolf, Clark Stempler, Becky, and Colleen have been friends of mine for, you know, as long as Ferreira, almost, you know, 30, 35, 40 years. So, you know, they actually never really came across this, but what they do offer is a different valve spring for the intake and a different valve spring for the exhaust because they sell exhaust cams. And in their infinite wisdom, they're going to use a beehive spring because it goes with a later model steel retainer that's actually a little smaller and a little lighter. They also supply this tool right here. One of the pieces are missing. I just took it off. It's right over here somewhere. I took it off because I needed access. And they also give you this little bucket. Hold on one second. They give us this little, you know, machined bucket that they use, and we're going to show you today how to actually do this. It doesn't take that long. You definitely have to be careful. You're dealing with really small pieces, especially the keepers that go on the valves that lock the spring in and retainer in. Also, another thing you got to be careful of, they give you this tool right here. This is going to pressurize the cylinder, stop the valve from falling down. It's a great tool. But if you don't have the piston in the right place and you don't have a breaker bar in the right place, the breaker bar will come around and crack you right in the head. So we're going to get this set up and stay right here. We're actually going to need that compressor to be on. So let's get that compressor on. Bear with me for the noise, and let's get this thing set up in there, and we'll show you how it goes. First thing basically you want to do is put the motor up on top dead center. It's not there, so we're going to pull it up. Real simple trick. Put a little screwdriver in there. Screwdriver stops going up on top. That's probably pretty much close to TDC. Doesn't have to be exact, but it has to definitely be as close to top dead center as possible. After that, they give you this great machine billet tool. It's really a nice piece. Take one of the bolts that you took from your bridge, and what you're going to do is you're going to actually, before you do that, we're going to do the #1 intake right here. I can't get that out with my fingers. So we're going to do the #1. Wow. Woo! Yeah, a lot of spring pressure on that. Okay. Believe it or not, we've seen that before. We've actually seen that before, and sometimes you really got to get down there and grab it with a pair of pliers. So we're going to take the bucket out. We're going to put the bucket in a nice clean area. We're going to keep that there, and we're going to actually install this machine bucket with the hole in it, and you're going to see why in a second. So that's going to go in there. It's going to help center the spring, and it's going to help stabilize the the retainer. And I believe on this one, we're going to use which side? I think we're going to wind up using which side we're going to use. We're going to probably use it. Oh, we can't do it there. It's got to be somewhere here. I just had this set up on the other side. Okay. Okay. Which way does it go? All right. Okay. Well, it's not really giving me what I want it to give me, but we're going to go ahead and center this up anyway. Okay. So the way we're going to center this up is we're going to take this air tool right here. Okay. We're going to take this air tool right here. I'm going to put this in there. Okay. It's right, goes down by the spark plug hole, centers itself. I'm going to tighten it down. Okay. Just put a snug on it. You don't have to go crazy, just a little snug. Okay. Okay. For now, we're just going to take this piece out and just make sure that this thing goes all the way down. On the other side, you could actually use the bolt holes for the cam caps as a player. Okay, so this one's coming in at the wrong angle. So what we're going to do is that we're going to just loosen this up, and hopefully we'll just be able to flip it around. That seems to be a better angle right there. So I'm going to tighten that back up real quick. Okay. And we're going to start bringing this down. All right, that'll get us on the bucket itself. Now, before you do this, you're going to say, oh, well, you're going to press down on the valve, which again is going to, press down on the bucket, which will pull down the valve. That's why you have to pressurize the system with air. That's why we need the motor up on TDC. Now, this is a little on the dangerous side in the sense that it's going to put a lot of pressure on the crank itself. Whoa, look at that. Okay. Okay, we're going to take that off for now. It's actually going to put a little bit of pressure on the crank. So real quickly, we're just going to see which way the crank wants to go. Like I said, puts a lot of pressure on the crank. Take that off, flip it to the other side. Okay, got to be really careful because that bar can come around and crack you right in the head, and it will. There was a famous NHRA racer that got hit by one of those while he was doing his funny car, and he got seriously injured. So this is not something that you're going to be able to make a mistake with. Why don't you just roll it over, and then we'll just roll. There you go. Okay, now roll it back. Okay, so now we know which way it's going to go, so now we're going to lock it in. So once we put pressure on this thing, you see that? Did you hear that? That thing will knock you out. So with that, you take the screw, you turn it down. Okay, and what we're doing is we're taking the pressure, we're applying pressure to the spring, which is going to relieve the keepers. All right, you get them fairly down there pretty good. Take a small magnet. We have a nice magnet I always use. You pull out the keepers one by one. Okay. You put them in a nice clean area. Okay. With that being said, at that moment, you now could pull this back up. Okay. You pull that back up. You can see it's coming pretty high off. Okay. Now there's no keepers in there, so technically the valve could drop in there, but the pressure from the air is actually holding it up. So, then you take your little magnet, you slide it right out, you grab the retainer, And I think this one we thought was cracked, right? Yep, there it is right there. There's a crack right there. Barely see it, but it's there. It's going to happen. Didn't go through yet, but you could see it's starting to gall the top of the retainer right there. The bottom of the retainer, I should say. Once that spring galls, it's going to stay right there. What happened was when the thing valve floated, it actually bounced the spring onto the bottom of the retainer. Normally the spring will actually rotate around the retainer, on the bottom of the retainer. But once the spring tab kind of bounced itself back and forth, it actually buried itself like right there. And once it buried itself right there, it's just going to stay there now. It's not going to move around like this. And it's just going to stay there until basically the retainer cracks. And if you look closely, you see the crack? It's right where the retainer mark is. So it's perfectly aligned with that theory, okay? So what happened here, when you money shifted, literally it bounced the spring until it galled the bottom of the retainer. And then once it galled the bottom of the retainer, when the spring came around to kind of rotate itself, it will not rotate anymore. Stays right in that spot. Where's that spot? Literally until it cracks it. And that's exactly what happened. You could see where the galling is, and you could see where the cracks are. So that's 100% the cause. We're halfway done with that right now. Always separate your intake springs and your exhaust springs. I don't care how many times you've done this. Make sure that they're here so that you don't mix them up. This would be the intake spring, always on one side of the motor, on one side of my bench. We put this in. We try to get it nice and centered. Okay, nice and centered in there, which it is. We take the specialized bucket that Jim makes for you. You drop it back in. It's a little tight. Not the tightest thing I ever worked on, that's for sure. I could say something bad, but, you know, trying to keep this a family channel. All right, even with the cursing. But we'll leave it alone. So we'll pull this back down, which we're doing right now. We're screwing it right back down. I try to tend to make sure that I don't screw it onto the little oil hole. It probably wouldn't mean anything, but just consciously I can't do that. So, you know, we always look where the oil hole is, and we start putting, and we move that out of the way. Tighten it down, which is not bad to do. Okay, we got it down. Okay. And we look at it and we say, you know what, it's a little off center. It's a little off center. So I just take a little pick, kind of move the retainer around a little bit. You can do that still, believe it or not. Yep, just like that. A little bit like that, nice. We're going to take our keeper. One of the tricks I like using for you guys is I put a little tiny bit of grease on it. Just a little bit. Just so when it gets into the groove, it actually kind of sticks to the groove. Okay, there it is. And we're going to put that retainer right in there. Okay, it needs to come down a little bit more. Okay, that retainer's in. Nicey nice. Okay, grab your other retainer, which is always a little, or other keeper, I should say. All right, I'm going to stick that one right in there, like so. Now it went in beautifully. You can see that both the keepers are now locked into the valve. Pull it up, not too fast, because just in case one of the keepers isn't fully seated, it'll pop the keeper up, and when that does that, it's going to bounce it into the motor most likely, and you'll have some fun looking at that. With that being said, you grab your magnet right there. Thank you. Pull that bucket out. Take your other bucket. Okay. The original bucket that came out of here. And stick it right in, and you're done. And that's it. That's basically how you change the valve springs. And now the retainers. And this will work in a VQ35, VQ35HR, VQ35HR, rev up, it'll also work in the VQ37. I suspect that this little tool would work in other places too. Really a handy tool. Great job by Jim and the whole crew over there. Clark, great guys. You know, Colleen always gets my stuff out. Becky got this stuff out overnighted to us. So we really appreciate the relationship there. Again, you know, we're going to use Jim Wolf's cams on the exhaust, so this definitely has to be done on the intake side. There's no adjustment needed. You're putting the bucket right back in. On the exhaust side, with a different cam, always go ahead and check the clearance. Jim usually does a really good job at making sure the base circles are really almost identical. So usually you don't need to do it, but I always recommend you check it. So with that being said, we did a pretty good job here. We'll actually get this finished up. I'm so happy that we did go back into this motor, and I'm really happy that we put a really quality piece back into it. So tune in for the remainder of the videos, man. You know what to do. Thanks.